Thank you for
Thank you.
inviting us to be on your wonderful platform this evening, and welcome to everyone. Our journey, 18 moves in 40 years. Lucy and I have been married for 39 years this year, almost 40 years. It's been a blessing from when we first met to now. But what's this 18 moves in 40 years all about? Well, it's a journey. And I think, as you said, Talent, we're all on a different journey. 40 years ago, I had no idea that we would be in Lehman Bar. We were in the city of Leicester, where I was born. Lucille, I think, came to Leicester when she was a baby, and I remember when she came, but maybe not. But the interesting thing is that we had no idea that one day we would be in the countryside. We're not actually in the countryside, I should say. We're in a small village called Lehman Bar, and it has been an interesting journey. And to be honest, it's has been Lucille's vision. It has been Lucille's dream to be in the country. And whilst we are not, we can't really say we're in the country just yet. 18 moves, but I think we've got maybe one or two more moves in us. Lucille's not happy when I say that, but we, I think, are probably going to move one more time, and that one last time, well, when Christ returns, hopefully we will be in the country with Christ. But at this particular time, we might have one more move while we're here on planet Earth, and that's in a country where, 20 years ago, we could say we were in the country when we went to Jamaica. But it's always been Lucille's vision, Lucille's dream to be in the country. So I'm going to let Lucy talk about her vision when she was young of being near to God, as near as possible, anyway, while we're here on earth. Lucy.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everybody. So I would say it started when I was born. I was born in Bedford, and we used to live in the countryside there. And then my parents moved from Bedford over to Leicester, and we lived in the city. And so I spent all of my formative years in the city. But I remember one time, it was the summer holidays, and must have been around 14, 15. And at the time, they used to take the children, city children, to the country. And I remember it was the summer holidays. It was a time when it was so hot, and we were spending so much time playing outside. And then we went to summer school, and they took us on a coach up to, which I thought was far away, up the road, the A6 to Foxton Locks. Foxton Locks. And I was absolutely fascinated by Foxton Locks. I saw the canal, I saw these, barges on the canal, and I saw people living in these barges, and I never saw anything like that before. And I was absolutely fascinated. I thought, wow, this is the country. It's amazing. I just love this place. So that stayed with me for up to now. And then, I continued being in the city. My father, he had five children, and in order to feed them, as well as Arthur's father, both of them, they had allotments. So
Mm.
they grew a lot of things on the allotments. At one point, my dad had about, I think, three allotments, and he would grow so many different things. So we ate from the allotments. And in the autumn time, my father would have loads of potatoes. He would reap these potatoes, he would put them in the coal shed. which no longer had coal. So he'll put them in the coal shed. He'll put the onions in the coal shed. He would have the garlics in the coal shed. And my mum used to get the carrots, the peas. She would blanch them and she would put them in a big chest freezer. So that was the kind of life I grew up with, preserving and having food throughout the winter, growing it, preserving it, eating it throughout the winter. And like when we had potatoes some had wormholes in it. All we used to do, we wouldn't throw the potato away, we'd cut out the wormhole and cook the potato still. The onion was rotting in on the outside, we'd take out the rotten skin and we'd eat the middle. That's the kind of life that I grew up with, and I learned a lot of skills from that. Also, I wanted to share that we did 11 plus, and that was a time of grammar schools. And we were in Leicester, they were phasing out the 11 plus system. So I did 11 plus, I failed 11 plus, and I ended up going to the local comprehensive school. Arthur went to the comprehensive school as well. We went to the same school, but we were years apart. But one of the blessings of the comprehensive schools were that they were training us to work in the factories. So they're training us how to sew, how to cook, basic electrical work, basic woodwork. We also were taught how to type as well. These were skills that they were giving us to equip us to work in the factories, because we were supposed to be the working class people. So the benefits of growing up in a family where they produce the food, and my mum used to sew clothes as well, and I learned how to sew as well. And then going to school where they gave you all these comprehensive skills that we needed really was the foundation for both Arthur and myself. So Arthur went up into engineering, well, teaching, engineering. I went off and I went away to do a degree, a law degree, because I got fairly good A levels. I hated it. I hated the thought of having no money. So I thought to myself, what pays me and trains me? And I thought, nursing, that's what I'll do. So I went and did nursing. And nursing has been such a blessing for myself and other people as well, and for my children as well. So I went into nursing. And it was funny really, because when I was on the ward, I remember meeting one of our teachers from my sixth form college. And he said to me, you wasted your qualifications doing nursing. You should have done something more academic. But I think nursing is such a blessing, and I encourage many people to go and do nursing. However, before they go off and do nursing, I would encourage them to read Ministry of Healing. Now, I was baptized at 15, and the reason I got baptized was at that time was that they put us through a series of baptismal class, and at the end of it, there's an expectation that you get baptized. I wasn't ready to get baptized. All my rest of my friends got baptized. So because I didn't get baptized, they put me through another series of Bible studies, which 26 weeks of these Bible studies. And at the end of it, I said, well, I didn't want to get baptized. And so they said, look, I'm going to put you through another series of baptismal classes, Bible studies. I thought, I can't go through this again. So what I did, I decided to get baptized. But one of the blessings of that process was that they gave me a compilation of books. And one of the books that was in this compilation was Counsels on Diets and Foods. Counsels on Diets and Food by Ellen White. I started reading that book, and it took me, I was dipping into it, I was studying at the same time. So it took me nearly 2 years to finish reading it. But I think 2/3 of the way through that book, I became a vegetarian. I gave up eating meat, and this is in a family of 7 who would eat meat. So they would eat cow tongue, cow foot, a liver, lamb chops. That's the kind of home that we lived in. But I made a decision that I wasn't going to eat meat at all. So I became a vegetarian after reading that book. So that was another pivotal point in my life. So seeing people live in the country in at Foxton Locks, being raised in a family where we grew a lot of our food and my mother preserved the food, and then becoming a vegetarian. Then Arthur and I got together, and the only one requirement I had of Arthur was I said to him, "Don't ask me to cook any meat." That's all I said to him.
Mm.
You can ask me anything else, but do not ask me to cook any meat. And so Arthur became, do you used to eat meat
No,
before
nuts and
that?
raisins.
Oh yeah, nuts and raisins. Yeah,
Mm.
Arthur can't cook and he won't cook. And so all he would be eating, I remember, was nuts and raisins,
Mm.
burnt nuts, because he used to put the nuts in the microwave and they used to
Hmm.
be burnt nuts and
No
raisins.
wonder I was sick.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah, and Arthur
Mm.
wasn't that healthy either. So yes, so we got together, but I've always had a desire to live in the country. And when we first got married, we lived in a place called Thorpe, which was in the
Village.
suburbs. It was a village, and but Arthur has always been a wheeler and a dealer. So I don't know, Arthur, if you
Mm.
want to talk about your wheeling and dealing.
No, not yet. You finished talking about the country living. Go on.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to live in a country, and so when we lived in Councilsthorpe, it was a what was it a kind of sub what do they call it? A
It was a
village.
village.
It was a village,
Mm.
and it was really quite nice, but we felt isolated. We felt
Mm.
lonely there, and so I was pregnant at the time, and we decided to go back into the
City.
city.
Hmm.
So we went back into the city. We went to our parents' house, and then after our parents, we went to a another house, and we were there for about what, 2 years?
Mm.
We were there for 2 years, and it was a house where
That fourth move.
that was the fourth move, and that's the house where we did it up. And that's the raison d'etre that we, Arthur and I, have. We get houses that need a lot of work, and we move into the houses and we do those houses up, and then we sell them at profit. And because you're living in it, you do not pay any capital gains tax. So we moved from there to another house, not far from where we were living, and that was like it was essentially, it was two flats. It was one house, but it was two flats. And we had a gentleman who was living upstairs, and we lived down the ground floor, but we owned the whole property. And we lived on the ground floor, and he had the upstairs, which were two levels. Unfortunately for him, he fell down the stairs and broke his leg. And so he wanted to move out, and Arthur assisted him in getting a ground floor flats. So after he moved out, we converted the property from two flats into one property. And then from that property, we sold that.
We stayed there for
Yeah,
12 years
yes, yeah, that's right.
because we couldn't sell it.
Yeah, so we were living there for, I think it was 13 years. And we
Okay.
by that time we had three children, and our children considered that house their home. But fortunately, we eventually did sell the property, and then we moved to another property, which was a bungalow. And again, that was one when we made quite significant profit with that one. We bought that one for, how much was it?
Yeah, we don't need to
Yeah,
say.
yeah, we bought it for a certain, it's the Sabbath. We bought it for a certain amount, and then again we did it up, and we sold it for a bit more,
Double the amount.
double the amount, and then we moved into another small property for a small period of time, did the same thing, and then after that we moved up to Stockport.
Hmm. For your job.
Yeah, for
Mhm.
my job, and that was as an associate director in Stockport Primary Care Trust, and we were there for about 5 years. But I still had this um, urging, a desire to have country property, and we've always tried to get country property, and even though we were making money, we didn't never have had enough money to get that country property. We just thought it was unattainable. And then a friend of ours was getting married in Jamaica, so we went to Jamaica to the wedding. And when we were there, as Arthur's practice was, he started looking at properties, and we saw this property in at the top of a mountain, was 5 acres, well fruited. It had so many different fruit trees, macadamias, lychees, avocados. It had massive water tanks, three massive water tanks, very large water tanks. I mentioned it was 5 acres, and because it was so high in the mountain, there was a fireplace in there. So imagine at nighttime it would get cold. So and when they told us the price of this property, 5 acres and all this, we thought, wow, this is a country property. We can afford that. And so I think it was at the same price for a terrace house in the roughest area of Manchester. So we purchased that property thinking that this will be our country home. However, something critical happened is that it was my desire to have the country property, and we never prayed about it. We never prayed. And because I was working, Arthur went back over to Jamaica to do the legal transactions and pay for the property. And the money was supposed to be transferred from our bank to this bank in Jamaica. And Arthur was waiting, checking, and the money never came in. And he was only there for a week. And then so I rang up our bank and said, what's happening? And they realized they hadn't transferred the money over. And so they apologized profusely. But Arthur said, look, do you want us to go ahead with this purchase? And again, we did not pray. Arthur and I did not pray. And I said, yes, it ticks all the boxes of country living. You know, when we read that little book, it ticks all the boxes. Yes, let's go for it. And this was in 2007. So we purchased that property in Jamaica. And from 2007 to 2007, was it
2017
or 20? Yeah, 2007 to 2020.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
2020, we were going back and forth between England and Jamaica, trying to make this country property work. We also set up a business importing agricultural and food processing equipment. We would go to China, buy things from China, quality things, and import it to Jamaica and sell it. And we were doing okay. But it was difficult because we were going back and forth between England because our children were in England. Most of our children were in England, and we were in Jamaica. And we came to a point where our youngest son was getting married, and that was in 2017. And so we came back, and at the same time, I was working, doing some working as a health visitor. And the reason I was doing that is because I needed to ensure I got my NHS pension, because I started the NHS in the 1980s. I could draw my pension when I was 55 years old, but I had to do a certain type of work in order to claim that. So I would come back for a period of time, work in the NHS, in order to get my pension. And then in 2017, our son was getting married. And when he told us how much he was paying for his wedding, just for one day, I was horrified the amount of money that he was paying. And I thought to myself, you know what, we can set up a wedding
Venue.
wedding venue, just get a decent property and do it. And every time we tried to do it, the door was closed. The door was closed. Oh, I forgot to say, yes, before I get to that point. So when we were in Jamaica, I would also be working as a medical missionary. So what happened when I was 50 years old, I went and did a medical missionary training. And how that transpired is that I had gone through reclaiming the health message around 2011. 2011, I fully reclaimed the health message. I really got deep into it. I transformed my lifestyle, transformed my health, and I met somebody who saw that I had changed, and she asked me what I had done. So I shared with her what I had done. She went off, and when I next saw her, she had transformed. And I said, "What did you do?" And she said, "I went to Wildwood." And I said, "What's Wildwood?" And she said, "It's a lifestyle center." And I said, what's a lifestyle center? I've never heard of that." And so she told me, and I went online, I searched online, and I saw this place called Wildwood, and I started reading up about it. And I never heard of medical missionaries before. And it was strange because when I was younger, about 17, 18, I wanted to be a volunteer overseas. But at that time, in order to be a volunteer overseas, your parents had to sign you off. And my mother refused to sign for me to be a volunteer overseas. So that really whetted my appetite. And I noticed that Wildwood did this training called the Lay Institute of Global Health Training. And so that was at a point when, after I had taken voluntary redundancy, because I took voluntary redundancy in 2011, I walked away from my job. I was an associate director at the time. I was nearly earning, was it how many digits?
3 times more than I was.
Yes, I was earning quite a significant amount of money, but I just felt that I was wasting my time and my life, and I wasn't leaving any legacy. So I decided to claim voluntary redundancy. I took voluntary redundancy and I left. I walked away from that job as an associate director. And so I did this training, the Lay Institute of Global Health Training. It took me nearly a year to, well, it did take me a year. You had to finish it within a year. But after I finished that training, we went back to Jamaica. And because I was no longer working, Arthur was no longer working, we spent a longer time in Jamaica. It was 9 months. And while I was in Jamaica, I started working as a medical missionary. And it was a wonderful, fantastic experience. So I would go out with, because I was English and I was considered foreign, because I was English and I was considered foreign, I went out with a local lady. And so she would do the praying. So we'll go together to different homes. She would pray. I would do the health element of it. And I would, even be examining women. I would mostly predominantly work with women. And then this other lady, she would pray. And then the people, they would pay me and this lady in produce that they had. So one lady, she gave me a massive bag of peanuts. And so what I did, I went and roasted those peanuts, made some peanut butter. And the next week I went to see her. I gave her a jar of peanut butter, and she was absolutely blown away that I'd made this peanut butter. Another lady, she paid me with a moringa tree, a plant, and I planted that tree, and that tree just grew and grew. And every year that we went back to Jamaica, I would pick the leaves, I would dehydrate the leaves, and I would make moringa powder. And then I'll be sharing that powder with the different people in the community. So that is what we were doing. I was doing that work. I really enjoyed that work. We even did a retreat, a health retreat in Jamaica in that property. If you want us to come on again, we would be able to show you some of the pictures.
Tell me how the Manor House came about.
Yeah,
How Manor House
you
came about. Yeah, you tell me.
I can't remember. You tell me.
Manor House. So the house that we lived in was an old Buckmaster house on top of a mountain place, and the it's a slave owner's house, and so it was quite a big house, and it was known as the Manor House. And so that's the name we gave it, Manor House. But Lucy wanted to put a spiritual spin on it. So instead of Manor, Manor House, we called it Manna from Heaven, Manna, Manna from Heaven. And that's where the name came from.
Yes. So we called it Manor House Jamaica. And so we did retreats in Jamaica as well. So that was work that we were doing. We're doing medical missionary work in Jamaica, going to people's homes. And it was truly a blessing doing that. And then the Lord called us back to the UK, and that was in 2017. So we came back for our son's wedding, and it was there when I would say that God arrested us. It was like
God arrested you.
God arrested us.
Okay.
Yes, both of us. We can't, you can't do without me, I can't do without you.
I
We
can't
have
do
to
without you.
we work together. So as I was thinking about doing this wedding venue, God was saying, no, do a retreat, do a retreat. And so we came to this critical point where what happened, I won't go into the details, but we decided to look for a property. And so I saw this property. I saw it, I looked on Google Earth and I said, it doesn't tick all the boxes. Arthur saw the property and he said, that's a very
Good price.
good price.
11 bedrooms for 350 quid.
Yeah, 350,000. Yeah. So Arthur thought that's a good property, good price. And I said, it doesn't tick all the boxes what God said we should be having in terms of lifestyle centers. But Arthur saw it from the financial perspective,
Because it was on the main road.
yeah, and he went to see it, and he didn't tell me we were going there. But when we got there, immediately I thought, this can work. This can work. So after we went around, looked around the property, it was by the canal, and I thought, wow, look, it's by the canal. And it reminded me of my childhood when I first went down to Foxton Locks, and it was by the canal. And it was all overgrown, it was all bushed up and everything. And someone had broken into the property as well. And so I didn't look inside it, we looked around it, but I got this strong impression this can work. So Arthur went back to view inside the property. I had to work. And then he had his reservations after seeing inside it because it was a bit rough inside. And so Arthur said, okay, let's offer, what did you say?
I don't know, 280.
No, 300 or something. You said you're going to offer free whatever. And I said, no, offer 250. And so Arthur offered 250 and the people agreed to sell it at 280. And so and we completed within a month. We had completed within a month. And we bought the property within a month, and then we started a series of renovation. It needed partially new roof, partially
Completely new roof.
new roof, all new windows, reconfiguring the bedrooms, landscaping the grounds, and this was done over a period of time. So that was from 2017. And our first residential program was 2018. 18, 19. And so and then what happened after that?
COVID came.
Yes. So we went back to Jamaica because remember we still had that property in Jamaica, and we had tried to sell it before, but we were struggling to sell it. And then I prayed a prayer and I said, Lord, I totally submit to you. I confess it wasn't your will for us to buy this property. And as soon as Arthur and I prayed that prayer, someone rang us up and said,
Oh, yeah.
look, there's someone looking for this property on the top of a mountain overlooking Treasure Beach with 5 acres. And what they were saying totally fit the brief of our property. And so we got in contact with those people. We invited them up. They came, they stayed in the property, and they decided to purchase the property. And so the property was sold, and we came back to England in March 2020, and
Lockdown.
we were planning to go and look at a property in Wales. That's right. We were planning to look at a property in Wales. And when we came back the next day, it was lockdown. It was lockdown. So we were locked down, and we had the wellness center in Stoke, and that's where we got to know talent as well. And we were locked down for 3 months. And then the government released some guidance, some acts to say that certain organizations, community interest companies, who were providing support for at-risk groups, and in particular, they were thinking about the LGBT plus groups, they could open and provide face-to-face support. So we fitted in that category because we were providing health support. And so after 3 months, we opened up Manor House. And during that time, from that point onward, we were chock-a-block. We were busy with health guests coming to the different programs. And so we had a residential program every month during most of the year, except the winter. We would shut down in the winter time. So that's how we ran it. But I always felt that the house where we were didn't fully fit the brief of what God gave Ellen White in terms of a lifestyle center. So we were always thinking of an outpost, having an outpost center. And so we were constantly looking. And so what we decided to do, we decided to put the house up on the market. And we were fortunate after a period of time that someone came along and purchased the property. And what we did, we sold the property, but we went into temporary accommodation and put all our furniture into storage. And why I believe that God allowed that, because I was studying, I was doing my doctorate, and we were still looking all the time for this property that, to run the lifestyle center where we could have more people, we can do the educational element of it as well, and have more health guests, and our staff have accommodation to stay. So we're constantly looking, and we were often being pipped at the post or outbidded, or we couldn't afford certain ones. And we were praying, I was praying, and then God said, once you submit your thesis, then you will get that property. So I said, okay, then I'm going to submit it by the end of February. And I worked towards submitting the thesis by the end of February. When I felt myself, I was typing away, when I felt myself kind of slowing down, I would push myself to finish this work. At the end of February, I submitted it. And in March, we were looking at another property in Wales. Again, we're thinking of Wales all the time. And our solicitor rang us, and I had issues with it, because instead of the price going down, like it did in the days of Ellen White when they were buying property, the house prices was going down. This house price was going up. The property price was going up, and I thought it's not really supposed to go up. And then our solicitor rang us up and said to Arthur, Mr. Fifield, if you want your property to be underwater in 5 years' time, then go ahead and buy it. But if not, then I recommend that you don't buy it. And so while she was talking to Arthur about this property, I went back online again, a certain website, and I started looking at properties. C2, it's called C2 properties. These are properties which you can use for education and for health. So I was looking for these properties, and I had seen this one property up in North Yorkshire, and I saw it before, but I thought, no, I've looked on Google Earth, it doesn't fit the brief. It's got the A1 not far from it. But I was conscious that God said, once you submit your thesis, God will provide the property. So I showed it to Arthur after he put the phone down, and it was for 1.2 million. And Arthur said, well, if they would accept 800,000, then I'll go for it. So I rang up the estate agent, and little did I realize that the estate agent was a gentleman we had dealt with before, and certain things were happening, or there were certain things that all came together at one time. And I can't go into the details of all the different things that happened, but the estate agent, he remembered us from a previous property that we had bidded on, and we waited 12 weeks and we were gazumped. Well, we weren't gazumped, we were outbidded. But Arthur was very gracious to the estate agent, and when we didn't get it, and the estate agent said, that's a very gracious response, Mr. Fifield. And other things, we had the commercial solicitor in place. We had cash in the bank because we had sold a property and we were living in temporary accommodation. So we went up to see the property. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, but again, I got that same impression. This will work. This will work. And it was a big property, and I could see how it could work.
This property.
This property that we were in. And so what we said, we would complete in 2 weeks. We will complete the purchase in 2 weeks. That's what we said. And that's how, and we offered, after we saw the property, we offered even lower.
700.
We offered even lower, and they accepted our offer. And we got it for, well, I won't go into details, but they accepted our offer. We completed everything. They took slightly longer, so it was just under 3 weeks. We got it, so it was even faster than buying it in an auction. And on the 5th of April, was it, or 4th of April, we moved into this property. And it was, when you're talking about time of trouble and things being really, really difficult, it was like time of trouble, in this property, because they had what's it at the windows? The security grills at all the windows. And the property had been unoccupied for nearly a year. And so it was damp inside. We was living in this damp place. There was no water. We couldn't get water, so no bath for 2 weeks. We had to go back down to Stoke to have a shower. It was really rough, but I thought, if I can't cope with this, how I'm going to cope with the swelling of the Jordan and all those different things. So it was rough, but it was an experience, and it's taken us quite a significant amount of time again to bring it up to the standards. So the skills that I had learnt as a child, and Arthur's skills as well. Arthur does a lot of the maintenance, and Arthur's laying carpets, laying lino, doing the gardening. Our neighbor, who's really, really is brilliant, is excellent. He's the best neighbor we've ever come across in all the towns that we've moved to different places. He said to Arthur, let me show you how to use a saw.
No.
A chainsaw.
Chainsaw.
Yeah, a chainsaw. And Arthur thought, I know how to use a chainsaw. But he went and showed Arthur how to use a chainsaw, and Arthur realized he didn't really know how to use a chainsaw. So Arthur can saw wood, trees and things down now. So the skills that I had from school, making curtains, wallpapering. Well, I learned that, moving all those different houses, painting. I do most of the painting, the finishing work. What else do we
We had a
do?
good teacher, Liz.
Arthur taught me to paint and decorate. Yeah. So all those different skills that we got from the comprehensive school has come into play in this property and others. So over the years, we've developed other skills as well. So yes, we've had some people to do some of the major works, like putting in the en-suites and things like that. But the other softer ones, like the carpets, the lino, the wallpapering,
The
the stripping,
decorating,
the
the finishing.
decorating, plastering Arthur's even learnt to do. We have had to do it ourselves. So that's how we've done. We're working on the garden at the moment. Um, we've got a massive polytunnel. It's a commercial polytunnel. We bought it secondhand, and we're going to be putting it up. From our previous property, we had a polytunnel, which was a smaller one, and we used to grow a lot of our vegetables. We planted a lot of fruit trees, and it was, in a way, it was a bit sad when we left the other property because I planted these fruit trees, and the year we were leaving, that's when the apples, the cherries, the pears, they produced so much fruit in abundance, but we had to leave. And they produced fruit the previous year, but the Bible said you shouldn't eat the fruit from the tree until the third year, once you come into a certain land. And so that's what we did. We didn't eat that until the third year. And by the third year, we were moving. We were in the other property 5 years, but it was the third that year that it produced a lot of fruit. So again, we're doing the same thing here. We've got 5 acres. We've got a paddock at the front. We've got the garden at the back, and we're gonna make a vegetable plot and things like that. Was then you want to say
Yeah, but
anything?
I mean, some people might be wondering why 18 times. Lucille alluded to it, that we moved quite a lot of times. We've strategically, because when buying a property, living in it and selling it, as you know, you don't have to pay the taxes the same as if you were to buy a property, develop it and sell it, which we do sometimes as well. But we've always progressed, and so it was mentioned what we purchased the other one at the house in Stoke, but then we sold it for 3 times more, and then we brought this one less than we sold the house in Stoke, and then as soon, I mean, I hesitate to say this, but every time I move into a property, I'm thinking about, okay, how much can we increase it? Because ideally, for me, I would like to live in a house where we don't have neighbors. At the moment, we still have neighbors. When we look out the front, we see bungalows. We've got a wonderful neighbor, and I think it's really important to have neighbors. And we're very blessed to have a wonderful neighbor, I must say, but we're still in a village. There are some who are in Wales, there are some I know overseas, in Spain, in Portugal. And I would say that's real country living, where when you look outside, you don't see neighbors. It was a bit like that when we was in Jamaica. You looked and we was overlooking the Caribbean Sea. It was beautiful. We could see houses maybe in the distance, but we didn't have neighbors directly near to us. And the challenge that we have is that if we sneeze where we are now, we get complaints by some neighbors. We've got one beautiful, wonderful neighbor, but some of the other ones, I don't know why it is. Maybe there's a reason. We cut down some trees and
Protected.
we tidied the trees up anyway, and some of the neighbors weren't particularly happy, and so
Yeah.
they reported us, and then it became a bit of a problem. So sometimes that's what happens, and so at that point we thought, well, maybe it's time to move again, and so that's the reason why maybe we will move again for the 19th time. But the point is, we keep on moving and progressing, hopefully, to the point where we will be self-sufficient. The way I see self-sufficient is that you're not dependent on the sources, on systems where we might one day have solar panels, where we might have our own water supply. That would be ideal. And so we're looking at that. Lucille has a storyboard. What's your storyboard?
Yeah. So I forget when I did it, but Joan was there at the time when we were at the previous property. We went and did a storyboard. So we got a flip chart and we said, this is what we would like. And we put on it all the different things that we would like ideally in the storyboard. And I think, if you want to have talent, if you want to have us on again, and then we could share some of the things, some of the pictures, some of the storyboards that we have. But one of the things that I would want your listeners who want to do
Absolutely.
who want to do country living, some key takeaways from what we shared is that don't get attached to properties. Some people say, oh, I can't leave this, I can't leave that. I've been living in this place for so long. I have no attachment to any property at all. I often think about Abraham and think about Sarah, the wife. They lived in a tent and that she was constantly moving. Each time she would have to pack up, not, it was a household of 1,000 people, pack up so much different things to move on again. And in a way, that's how I see it. But it's not a household of 1,000, but we have a lot of stuff. Also, don't get attached to stuff as well. When we went to Jamaica, we shipped out a lot of our furnishing to Jamaica. Oh yeah, and so what we did, we decided to sell, we sold it, but we sold a lot of our stuff, but we still had significant amount that we had a container, 20-foot container, and we crammed it in a 20-foot container. And then we moved the 20-foot container onto a friend's property in Jamaica. And so we went back a couple of years back and we more or less gave away or sold at very low price everything that we had. We didn't bring any container of stuff back again. No, we didn't. We bought some books back. We could found that we can ship smaller amounts of things back, and that's what we did. So we bought books back because books are precious. So that's what we did, ship back. But do not get attached to things. Prepare to get rid of things, sell them, make money from them. Don't let them. Don't be tied to things, because anytime I start feeling myself getting linked up to something, I say to myself, it's all gonna burn. It's gonna burn. Yeah, and then when I think of it that way, then I'll just get rid of it or sell it or put it on Gumtree, put it on eBay, get a little bit of money for it. So don't get attached to things. Don't get attached to houses as well. If you have children, we had children, and the children didn't like the fact that we were moving all the time. They wanted the home, a fixed place to be their home. And if you're going to use this approach, your children should be homeschooled so that they get used to moving with you. Whereas our children, they got into the system, they got into the school system, and they had their friends, and my daughter, she was doing her A level, she didn't want to move with us up to Stoke, and we left her behind with my parents in Leicester. But as a result of that, there was a distancing for a period of time. And my daughter was very resentful that we left her. left her behind. But, thank God that, the relationship has come back and it's even stronger than before. So you have to consider children as well. And if you're going to have that approach, then they should be homeschooled. Another thing as well is that some people, when I hear about them want to do country living, they don't want to get a mortgage. And recently, Arthur and I, we've been reading this book, The Retirement Years. And it was interesting that Ellen White in the 1900s, so she was really old up there. She had was it, how many, was it $200,000?
No, it was something like $6,000, or a small amount it might seem now. But
Yeah.
when we actually worked it out in currency, today's currency, because we were reading then it was about 1905,
Yeah.
which he had a £6,000 loan,
Loan.
right, to buy different properties. But we converted it to today's money, and it was something like massive amount of debt.
700,000.
700,000,
Yeah, it
yeah.
was 700,000. It was equivalent to $700,000. Yeah, and she had a loan and she was paying the loan. And when we looked into it, she had the loan in order to fund the books, and she was expecting to get money from the sales of the books that she wrote. And I was thinking, she was an old woman then. She was in her 80s, late 70s,
Late
80s,
70s.
late 70s, and she had a loan of $700,000. And some of us are reluctant to have a mortgage. And I think it's useful to think about getting a mortgage to
No,
start you off.
yeah,
To
but
start you
yeah,
off.
it's not something I would advocate though. I mean, we got rid of mortgages a long time ago. We would take a mortgage now if we needed to, if we was going to go and buy something else and we need it as a bridging loan, but not necessarily something that we was wanting
Not
to
for us,
maintain.
but a young
But
person.
yeah, so I'm talking about when you get old like us. I wouldn't recommend,
Speak for
yeah, I
yourself.
wouldn't recommend a mortgage, but certainly,
Speak for
I know you
yourself.
keep saying that, Bruce, right? But in terms of a mortgage for young people, yes, definitely. Why not? If you're going to have to pay rent, you might as well go and get yourself a mortgage. And why put yourself, when you're old, put yourself at financial risk? Avoid it if you can. But of course, I would suggest if you saw something and you needed to get some cash quickly, yes, go and get a bridging loan of some sort. I do know people who can offer that and provide and support. Saying, yeah, but I won't put myself into debt at this particular time. No. But Luce has been talking all the time. There was a time that was said, well, Arthur, you've been dragged along then, haven't you? It's Lucille's vision. It is, to be fair, Lucille's vision. She has some qualifications, not only now. In terms of, yes, she's doing a doctorate. It was me who said, Lucille, go and get one, right? And she has done so, and I think it's been a blessing. But the point is, I think, which is quite important. People might say, I've been dragged along. But prior to that, she's done some studies in MBA and other masters as well. But the qualifications that she has done has prepared us for this, what we're doing now. So it's not that I'm being dragged along, it's because I do truly believe in the medical missionary work. Why? Because of my own personal testimony. I mean, people say that, well, I was sick. Well, I was. I used to be very sick at one time, and not going into it to too great a depth. But, from the time I was a youth at university and suffered a certain amount of stress and been in aches and pains for I don't know how many years. I think 35 years of aches and pains, to the point when we actually went to Stoke, it got even worse, and I ended up on crutches for a period of time. And so when I went to the doctors, and the doctors says the way you deal with the aches and pains that you've got, it's better to take some more steroids. So they wanted me to increase the dose of medication which I was on, and I said, no, this doesn't make no sense. And so we went to, I think it was a European convention, and on the way back through Germany, we went to a wellness center, and the naturopathic doctor who we met there, a doctor called Melbourne, he said, if you carry on as you while you're in a wheelchair, and I said, I don't really want to be in a wheelchair. And I asked him, well, what should I do? He says, go home, collect your stuff, and come back and stay with us for 3 months. I said, yeah. And I think it cost, what, $6,000, but it was the best $6,000. So not dollars, euros that we've ever spent. We went back there and we spent three months. And that was, when was that? 2018. 2018. And for the previous 35 years was on some medication, one medication, two medication, all different kind of medication for 35 years. And since 2018, since I've stopped and changed my lifestyle, I've been medication free, not took anything. I wouldn't take anything for a headache. So it does. Medical missionary work really works. And that's what we're trying to do here. Help people to make lifestyle changes, because I'm not saying that you stop all medication. Definitely not. No, but some of our illnesses can be controlled, can be managed, can be prevented by changing our lifestyle. And praise God, that's what we've experienced personally, and that's what we've seen with people who have come to Manor House. Lifestyle changes have changed their life indeed.
And it's interesting because I remember one time I was sitting down, and yes, I had done I had done the Lay Institute of Global Health Training. I was a registered nurse, a health visitor. I worked clinically. I worked in public health, and I was having this conversation with God, and I was saying, Lord, how are we any different from allopathic medicine? Because allopathy treats the symptoms. And I said, but Ellen White said one of the first things you should do when
Mm,
someone's sick is find the cause.
mm,
And I goes, how can I find the cause? I don't know how to find the cause. How do you do that? I remember when I'd be asking people a series of questions, all these questions, give people these questionnaires about their lifestyle, but still I couldn't identify the cause. And I'm having this conversation with God. And when we went to Germany, it was twofold. Yes, Arthur went there. He went as a health guest and as a student, but he was too sick really to be a student. But I went there as a student. I was in Germany for 3 months as a student, and it was while we were there we learnt about an approach where you can identify the cause of people's health conditions. And so I was trained in that approach. And it's interesting that even in the doctorate that we did, they used the same approach as well. But because I had done the training over in Germany,
mm,
I didn't take that module for the doctorate. So after going to Germany and being taught how to identify the cause, that's when things started really falling into place in terms of the approach that we adopt in Manor House. Because from our experience, what we see is that some medical missionaries will say to somebody, bring the diagnosis and we will treat you. So what, instead of giving them drugs, they will give them herbs. And oftentimes, even health guests will say, oh, I don't want to take the drugs what the doctors give me. What herb can you give me to treat my symptom? But I'm saying we come from a totally different approach, and it's a public health approach. You try and identify the cause. If you come down in the morning and you go in your kitchen, you see water on the floor, you think, oh, I must have dropped some water on the floor and I'll mop it up. And you go about your business. If you come down the next day, you see water on the floor in the same place, you're thinking, hey, Where's that water coming from? And you try and find out where the source of that water is coming from. But as we know, allopathic, they keep on seeing the water on the floor and they keep on mopping up the water each morning, and they're not trying to find where that cause is.
where the leak is.
Yeah, where the leak is or whatever. Where's that water coming from? So that is the approach that we take where we try and find the cause.
Mm.
And I think it's such a powerful approach as well, a truly powerful
Do you want
approach.
to mention what it is? Okay,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and so it really has been a blessing. And so some might say, well, what did you do to change your lifestyle? What lifestyle changes did you make? Well, nothing different from what we know as our health message, a bit more exercise, changing the diet, uh,
Drinking water.
drink. Well, I was coming to that, but
Yeah.
rather than eating any time and and 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, I was taught anyway, to eat 2 good meals a day, starting with a very good breakfast and having a second meal, maybe a third light meal. And so these are things that we need, avoiding certain foods. I have found also that I mean, talking about testimony is, I have found that certain things don't agree with everyone. What Lucille can eat is not what necessarily I can eat, and so you have to be so very careful. But more than anything else, I've noticed is that I've been a lifetime of dehydration,
Yeah.
not enough water. And so one thing I've learned more than anything else, it's important to have adequate water, coconut water sometimes as well, but adequate water is so important. And if end up at a computer too long, I get stiff, also stiff. And so I realized that it's better to be physical, active, as much as possible. And so, yeah, I'm trusting in God, of course, and studying God's word is also very important. I have the privilege here of being the chaplain, and I very much enjoy doing morning and evening worship here, more so now than ever before. So that too is a very important aspect of improving our health. But I think we're coming close now to the end of our testimony. But before I do, I'd just like to thank all those who have helped us while we've been here, since we have returned from 2017. There have been people who have really supported us and helped us in the progress in our moves, and such people like Errol and Joan. I don't know if they're tuned in
Aaron and
today.
Joan Cornwall.
Oh, oh yeah, of course, Errol and Joan Cornwall. I just want to say a big shout out to the couple who knows about country living, who have indeed sacrificed lots and given up good jobs and moved to the country, and we've copied them, and they've come and supported us and helped us in the past, and so we're so grateful for people who have helped us in the
And
past.
could I share as well? Because when we came back to England from Jamaica,
Mm.
my sister-in-law was talking to Joan about us, because I never met Joan before, and Joan rang me and she told me that she did massage and things like that. And I said, okay, okay. And I took her name, took her number down, and
Mm.
I'm sure she didn't think I was going to contact her again. And when we were ready to start,
Mm.
then I reached out to Joan, and it was from that point onwards that Joan and Errol has been integral to the ministry. And in fact, we have a group, a WhatsApp group, and we call it the Sanitarium Family.
Mm.
And so, we go through a recruitment selection process, and it's not a case of anyone can come on. We go through a selection recruitment. We ensure that people are what they say, good and regular standing in
Mm.
in the church, and that they have had a credible medical missionary training as well, because we've had people come who said they've had medical missionary training,
Mm.
and I've given them a blood pressure, and I said, oh, could you go and take that gentleman's blood pressure, please? And the person walks off, stops, turns around and says, how do you use a blood pressure machine? Yeah,
Mm.
that's basic. you know. So we have a sanitarian family. We have people there who have been trained, and they don't have to be experienced because we can provide that experience. But what we want is people who are willing, who are genuine, who have compassion and love in their hearts to work with the health guests that come through Manor House.
But and in addition to Errol and Joan, we have a chef. I just got to give a big shout out to Sharon, who's been with us from the very beginning. And it's interesting,
Yes.
someone like Sharon, who we've known most of our life, who we met, maybe 15, 20 years ago, who said that one day she would like a medical missionary center. And we laughed because we didn't even know sanitarium. We didn't even know what a sanitarium was in those days. And she said that she would want one then. I think it was in Nottingham when we met her. And today Sharon is our first cook, and she's been with us all the time. So a big shout out to Sharon, and shout out to Jeanette, who we've got to know more recently, and she's a dependent person, and Patrick and Sister Diane. We've got many who regularly come to support us and help us. The problem is sometimes when you mention names, you forget important
Sylvia.
names. And so please forgive me if I've
Sylvia
forgiven
Rojas.
some names, but we're
Yeah.
so grateful for those who have helped us also in building this place. But you know, as I said before, I think the first year that I was here, I was thinking about where could we move next. And so come and visit us while we are still here, because we've got one more move into a more, Lucille's frowning, into the middle of nowhere one of these days. That's where we would like to move to.
God willing.
If God spares,
Yeah, God
yeah,
willing.
that's right.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I think, is there anything else you wanted to share, Liz?
Nope, nope. If talent has us back on again, what we could do
With
is
some pictures.
show some pictures, a vision board, and some of the things that we do.
Yeah,
But we're open for questions. I'll hand it over back to talent.
Thank you very much for blessing us with your story. I know we have met, but it was in brief sessions. We never sat down to hear this. So thank you for sharing your very inspiring story and all the twists and turns that the Lord has taken you from strength even unto strength. And that demonstrates what Sister White, I think, in the Great Controversy, would like to call experimental religion. And we all need to have that experimental relationship with God, where we can trust God to order our steps, step by step. And in terms of part two, most definitely. In fact, we've got another session on the 28th. Sister Alma, she was here. She would like to share her story about her move from this country, and she's gone to Jamaica as well. And she's still here tonight, but we don't have any slot on Friday next week. So if you are happy to come back Friday to share the pictures and the charts that you were talking about, that would be very good.
No, we've got a retreat starting on Sunday. So, and it's a 10-day retreat. So unfortunately, it's a 10-day retreat. Unfortunately, we will.
That's all right. You can always come back. And like I said to you on the phone, and I'd like to speak as most of the medical missionaries are still here. I feel like we have been a little bit working too separately. And my wish and desire is to do a much closer collaboration between those who are doing maybe some of the work that we do, which is on the streets and everywhere else. We have limited knowledge on the front of medical missionary. And I told you of our desire to train, but also just to work. We've had this idea of having maybe a big health expo where we can combine the evangelism push and the distribution of books, especially the Great Controversy but we can talk about that in greater detail. I don't know what you think about it. I'm just throwing it out there as an idea that we've been brooding over for a few years.
It's a wonderful idea, talent, and it's something that we can develop. We can work with the Association of Health Reformers. And one of the things I didn't mention is that, yes, I'm a director of Manor House, but I am also a director of the Association of Health Reformers. And the focus of the Association of Health Reformers is that we want to bring back the way, the health, how God designs it. We're trying to really develop and promote the natural health that God has prescribed for us. And we're working not just within the churches, but within the communities as well. And we're trying to encourage people who've worked in the NHS and other areas to transition from allopathic to God's methods of health. So yes, I think it'd be a good idea if you link in with the Association of Health Reformers.
Can I also say though, you know, if you don't mind, some people say, "Oh yes, we must move to the country," right? And I can see the benefits of moving to the country, but and Energy White says that it's important to do so. There's many distractions in the city, and anytime we go into the city now, it's not the greatest experience. The traffic that we experience. Yes, you can hear birds singing in the cities, yes, certainly. But we've got deers in our garden, you know, a family of deers. I think there are about 5 out there in the morning, each morning, a mom and dad and 3 children. And that's really wonderful. We see all different kind of starlings and birds and quails and
rabbits.
Yeah, I guess you can see that also.
Badgers messing up the lawn.
Eating out the lawn. Yeah, so there are some great things that we can experience out here, but there are some not so great things. When we were in Jamaica, I certainly wanted to come back because of the isolation. And so there are some great benefits, but there are some more challenging experiences. So isolation, feeling lonely. But then in Jamaica, maybe it's slightly different because they look at us knowing that we're from England and we are considered as foreigners, them call it. And, you know, no matter whatever we did, we really never was seen as the same as them. Well, we guess that's understandable. Anytime we would go to church, they would look but never really spoke. And I found quite lonely, to be honest. And so there are many benefits, but there are some, you know, of the negative cons in the country. If you're not one who likes to be active, then maybe country life is not so great because every day is very, very busy. Who wants to be chopping wood all the time? Well, that's what we have to do here. You know, there is no time to watch television, and if you're looking for all the I'm about to say the blessings of city life, then you know country life isn't for you. But really, it has been a privilege being out here.
Arthur, Lucy, it's Carlton here.
How you doing?
Can you say something about your weekends or your sessions? Because I've been to Manna House a few times. It's absolutely amazing the way you bring people together who are complete strangers, sometimes not even Christians, and they get a unity afterwards that is incredible. It's the most amazing ministry I've ever seen.
Thank you, Carlton.
But describe it, please. It's inspirational.
But I think it's God's doing. That's all I can say. It's God's doing. So what we do, one of the things is that we have quite a few non-Adventists. We've had Muslims attend our program, and I have to say that people have heard about the Muslims have heard about our approach through Barbara O'Neill. I know our church have banned her, but the Muslims have heard about our approach through Barbara O'Neill, and they are reaching out and contacting us. But we get a lot of we have Christians and non-Christians coming on the programs. And what we do, we send them a welcome letter, and the welcome letter kind of sets out a little bit about who we are, but we also in the welcome letter put it plainly that we have the Sabbath day, we keep the Sabbath day, and we look at it from the health perspective. And we say that we have the Sakapsitan, and God has created within us this 7-day cycle, and that by the time we come to the seventh day, we need to have a rest. And so we tell them that, you know, we have a service on the seventh day. They're welcome to join us, or they don't have to. However, we've had about I'll say 370 people come on the residential programs. We've had other people who've come to the clinic as well, the wellness clinic. And so what tends to happen, so people are spending 7 to 10 days, some 14 days on a program, and they form bonds, connections, and they have WhatsApp groups, which is a supportive mechanism as well. And so the ones that have had this WhatsApp group, I tend to send a devotional 5 days a week. I've also set up another group. We call it Manna House Health Community Group, and it's an open forum. Anyone can join, and that's where we talk about health in its broadest sense, and we share information. So if anyone has a question about health, previously I would answer it one-to-one, but it's taken up a lot of time, and only one person would benefit from the answer. So what I have said to people, look, ask your question in this community group, WhatsApp group, and I'll answer the question in the group so that everyone can benefit from the learning of it. So that is what we do. But I don't know what else to say about the
What's the program look like?
What the program? What do you mean?
Well, what's the program going to be like on the from Sunday?
So that's a 7 to 10 day program. We have some people staying 5 days, some people 7 days, and some people 10 days. So people come, we do a health assessment, a comprehensive health assessment. I think it's comprehensive. We do tests on the urine and the saliva. And those who are on the Restore program, the Restore program is for someone who has a health condition. And the Refresh program is for those people who consider themselves healthy and they want to enhance their health. So the people who are on the Restore program, we do their assessments, the vital signs every morning. And then based on the results of those tests, we give them a therapy. So they have at least one therapy a day. And we're monitoring their health. And also in an important aspect of the program, and this is what Sister White said, and that's what distinguishes our programs from some of the other retreats and spa-like program, is that there is a lot of education. So the next week we've got a health presentation in the morning, a health presentation in the evening, and in the middle of the day there's a practical demonstration. So our desire is to equip people with the knowledge and the tools that when they go away, they able to keep healthy. So we had one lady, she this is the third time that she's coming. And she says she went to a well-known person's retreat in Portugal. And she said, yes, she eliminated the weight, but when she went back home, she put the weight back on again. But with our programs, she eliminated some weight, but when she went back home, she knew how to maintain her weight and her health. And that is the big difference. She said, we give them the tools and the skills, the knowledge and the motivation to keep on this journey for perfect health. And that's our approach. We call it perfect health. And if you read the writings of Ellen White, and our default position has always been the Bible and the writings of Ellen White, the spirit of prophecy. So if you look at the writings of Ellen White and the Bible, they say in order to have perfect health, there's just 3 things that you need. just 3 things. And it is perfect circulation, it's true temperance, and the third element is love, joy, and hope. And that's the spiritual element. So it's about worshiping God and serving others. I hope that answered your question,
But
Carlton.
also, I think also Colton is saying that, and I think you did say that many of those who come on our programs are not Adventists, and that's okay, of course. We still see the medical missionary work is the right arm of the gospel. It gives us opportunity to heal those who require healing.
We don't
But
heal,
we
God
don't heal,
heals.
God heals, right?
The
The
body
body
heals
heals itself,
itself.
given the right conditions. But
Yeah.
it's a privilege to be working in this area. And when we actually meet different people, people are always interested in our faith. And we have morning devotion each morning. And I think all people who come on the program will attend. Again, they're not, the 7 pillars of the Seventh-day Adventist faith, but certainly the topics are of interest, and we have many breakthroughs. And so we are truly blessed that our health guests, we call them, join us, join these sessions. Thank you for your question, Colton.
Thank you for the answer. I was talking really about how they walk together, eat together, spend time together, and have fun together. Not just at Barbara O'Neill, but at Man House as well. Very, very close, very, very family oriented. Tremendous.
That's important.
Yeah, that's definitely important. Because I remember when we had the COVID, we had put the tables like, 2 meters apart. And people would come with a lot of fear, with their masks on. And within days, the masks would go, the tables would join up together, people laughing and joking and whatever. Not a one person got COVID, not one. And in fact, we said to people, if you do get COVID, you're in the best place for us to manage it. Yes.
Amen. Yeah. We'll entertain a couple of more questions.
Good evening. Thank you so much for sharing your testimony. I just wanted to ask about your experience in Jamaica. What would you say was your best experience and your worst in terms of, deciding to move to Jamaica for country living?
Yeah, so the reason we moved to Jamaica was affordability. Yeah, so really affordability. And also at the same time, one of the reasons I took voluntary redundancy, because I felt like I was slowly dying and I couldn't put my finger on it. But later on, I realized I had a series of tests because I was having these health challenges that I had no vitamin D, critically low.
Wow.
Because of my lifestyle, work in an office, going in a car to visits and then whatever. So it's critically low, very, very sick, and it manifested itself in different things. And my body knew it was struggling, and I just needed to go in the sun. And that is one of the reasons why we spend time over in a hot country in the winter time. But in terms of Jamaica, I love Jamaica, and I'm of Jamaican heritage. My parents are, and I've got a Jamaican passport. My husband is not of Jamaican heritage. He's from another Caribbean
beautiful island.
Another Caribbean island. So it was primarily because of affordability. However, what would I say? Jamaica is a lovely country. It has lots to offer, but as Arthur said, is that we were considered as foreigners. We were foreigners and seen as cash cows. And if you're trying to develop friendship within a few moments, they come in and saying, well, I've got such a person sick and that person sick. And then, oh, could you give them help out with some money, this or money that? It wasn't a genuine friendship. And so then what would happen? You'd be spending your time with other returnees as well. But my focus was going into the community, focus was going into the community. And also, I think it was the isolation, really. It was, yeah, it wasn't, it's hard to say because I still got a friend out there and we pray every Thursday. But again, she's a returnee and she loves Jamaica. She will never go back to England.
Come back.
She'll never come back to England, you know. But and I have other people who've moved out there as well. But financially, it is challenging. And we sat down and we compared the cost of living in Jamaica and the cost of living in Britain, and it is far cheaper. I don't know if it's still the same now, but it's cheaper to live in Jamaica. Electricity is cheaper, and if you can set yourself up in Jamaica so that you've got your own water supply, you can get solar energy. That's another plus as well. If you've got your vehicle, and the only other thing that you'll have to pay for is the petrol. You can do country living. Okay, I find that farming in Jamaica is harder. Whereas if I'm growing my fruits and vegetables, it's so much easier. Yes, it's cold outside, but once you start moving, you warm up and you end up taking your clothes off. In Jamaica, it's hot. You have to get up early in the morning to do your farming, and then in the evening time. And also the mosquitoes. I can't stand the mosquitoes. That just bite you up all the time. And I used to really respond badly to the mosquitoes. And what's it called again? Those wasps as well, and different things like that. Yeah. And also some of the people as well, I don't want to go into details, but
yeah, I'm thinking. So it's the loneliness that was my reason for wanting to return and to be near family. But with my business hat on, England has many more investment opportunities. And so maybe that shouldn't be said at this particular time, but that's another reason why we came back.
But also at the same time, you're thinking about, England is a mission field. It's atheistic, secular country. In Jamaica, it's easy talking about faith and religion. It's not a problem. It's very, very easy, But whereas in England, you have to use different ways and different approaches. I try to talk. Our neighbor is such a lovely, lovely man. I want him to be saved. And when I talk about I'm praying for you, or I'm sending my card and I'm dropping hints about faith. He just looks at me and just smiles. Yes. And I really would want him and his wife. I really want them to be saved because they're such lovely people. But it's hard. It's hard. It's really, really hard. And Britain is a mission field, and God sent us back for this reason.
Sister Lucille, I would like to agree with you, but then again disagree with you in a way too. And the reason why I'm saying agree with you, yes, England has been very difficult and quite secular, but I think since COVID particularly, the game has been wide open in certain circles. You go to people and you just tell them about the current affairs, and people are more than ready to listen now, especially in the last 5 years, more than ever. So I'm seeing a change in the wind. Yes, but there is still people who are going to be difficult, like you're saying about your neighbor. But on average, on the streets, I find people are more receptive now than ever before.
Amen.
That's fantastic. Yeah, thank you for your ministry. Thank you, Talent.
No, we thank God for his ministry. Yeah. We're going to allow for one more question if there's any. If not, we might have to bring this to a close.
I'm I mean, everything, what has been said is fantastic, but I think if it was possible, it would have been really excellent to have a place here, like where Lucille and Arthur is now, but also a place in Jamaica, because as was said, that a lot of our problem here is actually vitamin D, and it's affecting, all of the black. Obviously, we have means where we can get vitamin D, but I mean the primary source is the sun and just the environment, and it would have been lovely if they had the resources to have it in both places, but it would have been more challenging.
Yeah, I totally understand where hi Grace.
Hi.
Yes, I totally understand where you're coming from. Vitamin D is a big issue, because it's not just people of a darker complexion, because 90% of white British people are vitamin D deficient. Yeah. And 95% of people of a darker complexion are vitamin D deficient. And that is the reason why a lot of people, when, COVID happened, it just highlighted the fact of the people's low vitamin D. But, I'm just pleased that God has allowed us to have vitamin D supplements and to take them. And if you do take them regularly, it does certainly bring up your vitamin D levels. And I take two types. I take one for the long-term ones, and then when I'm sick, I take the calcifidiol, which is a fast-acting
Have you got to
one.
be careful what type you take, though? I didn't agree with everyone.
I just look at the IUs and base it on the IUs. Yeah. Yeah, but not everyone can afford to travel, and that's the thing. And not everyone is well enough to travel either. It is a privilege to be able to travel overseas.
Thank you very much for that. Yeah, Brother Davis, it's your time.
Okay, let's pray. Father in heaven, we just want to thank you so much for the blessings of Sabbath, and I want to thank you for Doctors Fifield. We thank you for their testimony. What a wonderful journey of faith that they have been on. And Father, I just pray that you'll continue to be with them. Maybe they have two more moves, one here on earth and one to the home above. We just pray that you'll continue to be with them and bless their ministry. May your will, Father, be done in their lives. And we thank you for their influence. We thank you for the lives that they have touched. And we thank you for the wonderful testimony that they've shared here this evening. We pray, God, for those who aspire to country living. We pray for those who aspire to doing the medical missionary work. May you open up avenues and ways for them also. So, Father, hear us and bless us, and may your will be done now as we retire for the night. In the name of Jesus, we do pray. Amen.
Amen. The next week, we are going to hear from Sister Alma, who runs a little ministry as well called Seeds of Love Ministry, started here in England. We've got a long history together, but she will tell you the story. I don't want to preempt anything. On the 28th, Friday the 28th. Thank you very much for coming.